To lead at the highest levels, strategy must be your language. The Institute of Leadership and Strategy is Ghana's premier training destination for professionals preparing for C-suite and senior executive roles. The Certified Strategy Professional Program is a 10-week executive course designed to deepen your strategic expertise across key modules with flexible weekend sessions online and in person. You can locate us at East Legon, Accra, or call 0244 268672. That's 0244 268672 today to register. Institute of Leadership and Strategy, developing managers and corporate executives.
All right, a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, all leaders and strategy enthusiasts on this call. We want to officially welcome you all to the August edition of the ILS webinar series. We welcome you all to today's power-packed webinar that's being hosted by the Institute of Leadership and Strategy. And as it was advertised, today we will be discussing strategy execution. We all know that a great strategy on paper means nothing without the right execution. It's not the vision that separates successful organizations from struggling ones. It's the ability to turn plans into results consistently and sustainably. And so today we want to have a discussion around it, know why strategy execution is very important in our various organizations. And so once again, you are all welcome to today's webinar. I am Iraja Ejekwan, and I would be your moderator for this evening's session. And as usual of us, we would want to be very interactive with our listeners. And so probably we just want to pick a few comments in the comment section just to know who is joining us on the call, who is on the call with us, where you're joining us from, just to be more interactive with our listeners. And then we zoom right into our main business for today. So if you are listening to us, you can just indicate in the comment section your name and where you're joining us from so we can get interactive. right? We have Eric Oseusu, he says, good evening. We have Obane, he says, thank you. Chris Sechi says, good evening. We have Bexon also on the call with us. We also have Peter Gapo Kweku. He's also on the call with us. We have Eric Mensah. We have Felix Bonny, the gateway to C-suite status. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. We have Lydia Latte. She says, greetings to you all. Thank you very much. Philip, thank you all so much. There are a lot of comments coming in. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening for this insightful conversation. All right, so as we were just doing in the comment section now, we want to keep at it whilst the speaker is having his presentation. If you have any comments, you have any questions at all, you can drop them in the comment section. And from time to time, I'll be engaging him with your questions, with your comments. And so once you have any questions at all, just drop them in the comment section. Even if you have any add-ons, any experiences to share with us, you can drop them as well, because we believe that we have very senior managers and professionals on this call who can also give us their insights into today's conversation. And so any comments at all, you can drop them in the comments section. All right, so to better guide us through this crucial conversation, we have our speaker for today. He is Dr. Jeff Bassi. He is a leader, a strategist, a thought shaper who has worked with diverse organizations to bridge the gap between strategy design and real-world impact. And so I'll just read a brief profile about him, and then I hand over to him to drive us through the conversation for this evening. All right, so Dr. Jeff Bassi, like I mentioned, is a leadership and strategy expert. Jeff has consulted and trained for more than 200 organizations, including Bank of Ghana, MTN, Newmont Gold Ghana, USAID, Ghana Revenue Authority, Ghana Stock Exchange, Kempinski Hotel, Coca-Cola, Talo Oil, and sits on the University of Ghana Appointments Advisory Committee. He is the founder of the Institute of Leadership and Strategy and also the founder of the HR Certification Center, Ghana. So ladies and gentlemen, our speaker for this evening is in the person of Dr. Jeff Bassi. Good evening, Doc, and you're welcome.
Hi, a very good evening to you, our moderator, Rajua J. Kran, and then a very good evening to our August, participants who, most of us here, I'm sure more than half of the people, I am told well over 100 people are on the call. The immediate last session we had over 300 persons. I'm sure by the time we end, some more persons would join. To all of you who are on the call, a good day to all of you, and thank you for joining us once again. As the moderator had mentioned, Rajwa had mentioned, this is our monthly webinar series. We focus as an organization on two major areas: leadership and strategy. Okay. All right. So we are the Institute of Leadership and Strategy. I will tell you just a little bit about us, and thereafter we would get straight into the discussion proper. So as an Institute, Leadership and Strategy, we focus, our area is executive development, with a key focus on leadership and strategy. We so far have been delivering services in 4 areas. The first one is our executive leadership program. We have two major flagship programs. Executive leadership program. You have to be in a management position to qualify for this particular program. It runs on quarterly basis, executive leadership program, preparing managers, senior managers for C-suite executive roles. And then we also have a major flagship program called the Certified Strategy Professional, CSP. And when you are done, you sit for the global certification exam in strategy. to seal off your confidence in strategy, to gain your recognition both locally and internationally. Then we also run in-house sessions. In-house sessions are in the areas of leadership training, and for that matter, facilitating executive strategy sessions for organizations. Indeed, just tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday, I will be facilitating 2026 strategy for Prudential Life Insurance. And we've done that for quite a number of organizations in this country. We also lead executive and leadership trainings for management teams of various companies. We've covered some 240 organizations, MTN, Bank of Ghana, we do Newmont, we've done Casapreco, Coca-Cola, Kempinski Hotel, Marriott, Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority, Ghana Stock Exchange, the Ghana Revenue Authority, and a number of private organizations as well. And then finally, we do consulting services in 3 areas. We develop 5-year, 3-year, 5-year, 10-year strategy plans for various organizations. At the moment, we are doing for a couple of the banks, including the bank hospital, some of the rural banks, etc., some estate companies here and there. We also developed the performance management system, inculcating the balanced scorecard. We have implemented that for a number of firms, Casapreco, Kempinski, and what have you. And then we also developed corporate governance protocol for quite a number of organizations, including DevTraco, etc. So in brief, this is who we are. We are located at East Legon, Accra, Ghana. That is where you find us. And we pride ourselves in the tagline that we are driving the future of executive leadership and strategy education. We are only 2 years old, just yet to be 3 years, but by God's grace, we have passed out close to 500 persons, or let me say 500 managers and professionals had gone through our executive trainings in areas of leadership and strategy. Let's zoom straight into why we are here this afternoon. We'll be having a conversation on strategy execution, and I would deliver this presentation on the assumption that a number of us, or you already understand the strategy formulation process, and for that matter, strategy planning. For those of you who join our July webinar, at least we gave you some synopsis of the environment of strategy, out of which we deduce the functional strategy. You may want to consider taking a full-fledged course with us on business strategy for you to appreciate everything. But this is a statement that was made by Maurice Chang. Maurice Chang said, without a strategy, execution is aimless. And without execution, strategy itself is useless. And for me as a person, I have led quite a number of organizations, particularly in Ghana, to develop strategic plans. And we normally will host a lot of these sessions in all the flashy, facilities across the country, from the Royal Sanctuaries to the Aqua Safaris to the Peninsulas to the Safari Valley Resort, etc. These organizations spend loads of money in the name of accommodation. I mean, when you are financing, 45 of your managers sleeping in rooms that are paying 5,000 a night, multiplied by some 4 or 5 nights, amidst the food they'll eat, the cruising on the river, the fuel they have driven to and fro, the consultant's fee, etc. We are already running into the millions. And unfortunately, many of these organizations return to their offices only to not have the strategy seeing the light of day. And in a typical strategy execution class, I will begin by engaging my participants, my managers, on why execution fails. Why do many companies put together well-formulated? You should be in strategy sessions and you would appreciate the analysis that goes behind formulating a strategy for an organization. They always look implementable on paper, but according to Michael Porter's sponsored research by the Boston Consulting Group, 48.6%. That's a near 50% of all organizations that go through the trouble of developing strategic plans do not even have the strategy seeing the light of day. Indeed, it is estimated that 70% of CEOs that fail is due to bad strategy execution. And normally, the problem encountered with execution of the strategy often lie not in the flaws of the strategy itself, but rather in the failure to implement the strategy effectively. And it is on that backdrop that I'll be sharing with you in the next few minutes. I'm sure some 40 minutes time we should be done with this. I'll be sharing some thoughts with you on how to improve on your execution of your various strategies. Now, let's start. Why does execution fail first and foremost? Why do we pay all the monies to the consultants? For us, when you hire us, we will do a global standard strategic plan for you. But of course, it will cost you some money as well. And after all of these things, the strategy doesn't see the light of day. Why does this happen? Number one, in my view, is lack of effective leadership. Folks, employees, workers, team members do not follow documented plans. They follow the leadership power thrown behind those documents. When you went to Aqua Safari, when you went to Royal Senchi, when you went to probably the Peninsula, like I will be going tomorrow to run this for that insurance company, you probably were just about 40, 45 persons. But the staff strength of your company is about 2,000 persons. Why do we have only 40 persons? Because strategy is for senior management. Now, those 40 persons, when they come, they will obviously not be the ones who would implement the strategy. The strategy will be implemented, will be executed by the masses. But trust me, you don't just go put people together and announce strategic initiatives to them. You would have to go through effective communication and, if you may, effective leadership, because employees do not follow what is documented. They follow leaders, the leadership power that is thrown. So when there is seemingly lack of leadership, it becomes a major, and if you may, the first recipe for the failure of the strategy. The second reason, in my candid opinion, why strategy execution fails is lack of commitment. It does look like some companies just develop strategy for prestige purposes. Well, every company is doing strategy. Let us call Institute of Leadership and Strategy to come and lead ours and blah, blah, blah. Because we have really had some painful experiences where you develop a 5-year strategy for an organization. And every year when you have to go back and reformulate the strategy to suit the financial year, because strategies are not static plans. They are emergent, they are fluid, and must be adjusted frequently. Now, my best statement I make on strategy formulation is the fact that strategy formulation is about relating an organization to its environment. So when the environmental factors are changing, i.e. the political environment, the economic environment, how technology is changing, the industry dictates. I'm talking about customer preferences vis-a-vis what the competitor is doing. When those exogenous forces are changing and you are not reformulating your internal strategy to commensurate with those exogenous forces, chances are that your strategy will stay out of gear. So we developed this strategy, and every year we have to go back and reformulate the strategy, like I'm going to do tomorrow and Thursday for Prudential Life Insurance. They have a long-term strategy, but every financial year we needed to reformulate the strategy just so that we can relate it to the changes within the environment. So I was calling all HODs, so if you may, all heads of department, functional heads, and then you call some people, and it is now they are looking for the strategic document you had developed with them, when we have actually executed about 2/3 of the financial year. So sometimes the seeming lack of commitment, particularly on the part of executive management, that trickles down to senior and line managers, becomes a major recipe for the failure of strategies. The third one is lack of communication. Lack of communication. As I mentioned, strategy sessions are not for rank and file employees. You have a company of, say, when you take Absa Bank, 2,500 employees. You go to strategy session and you meet less than 50 people, because these are the very top, senior managers in the organization. So here you have 50 people developing a strategy for 2,500 persons. When you come down, your ability to effectively communicate, cascade, and if you may, demystify the strategy and relate it to their everyday activities in organization. It's a real skill. And for us, when we are doing our certified strategy course, we dedicate a whole module to execution, and for that matter, how to effectively communicate the strategy. Then a fourth one is cross-departmental conflict, when there are ambiguity in roles and responsibilities, and for that matter, resource allocation. And finally, lack of strategy control and accountability. You don't put a strategy on autopilot. We have developed a strategy plan for the organization. We are sure that this is going to work. No, there are going to be external forces that are going to shock the strategy. There will be shocks. And if the organization doesn't have effective control measures, I'll be sharing with you some of those factors that create shocks on the strategy. And I'll share a few thoughts with you on how to navigate those challenges that come along when a strategy is facing, real challenges. But what is on your screen right now is a snapshot of what represents the strategy implementation process. On a good day, it will take me some 8 hours to explain what is on your screen now, but I'm going to, as much as possible, try to give you the abridged version or try to summarize it for you to appreciate. The very first thing we do, in the strategy implementation process is to ensure that there is absolute alignment within the strategy. Now, when it comes to strategy, the watchwords are, congruency and synchronicity. You cannot have strategy at the corporate level that is disaligned from business level strategies, and for that matter, functional level strategies. At the corporate level, the organization is making a strategic direction. Are we driving a stability or consolidated strategy? Are we driving a growth, otherwise known as expansion strategy? Even if you are driving a growth and expansion strategy, you're going to make choices, because strategy fundamentally is about making choices. You're going to look at whether you are going to drive that using the market penetration or the product development or market development or diversification, etc. Then you may also look at driving a retrenchment strategy. So there is always a direction that is created at the corporate level. Now, all business interest areas, when you take a typical bank, for instance, there's retail banking, there is SME, loans division, there's treasury and trading, there is the personal loan, there's a corporate loan. These are all various businesses that are run by the bank. And the organization would have to make some choices at the business level, whether you are driving a cost leadership strategy or a differentiation strategy or a focus strategy. Even the focus strategy, we can further look at focus differentiation strategy or focused cost strategy. At a business level, we must ensure that there is an alignment between the business level and, for that matter, the corporate level. And then finally, at the functional strategies, you may have to develop some tactics or strategy that will pursue the financial aspect of the strategy, the HR aspect of the strategy, the marketing aspect of the strategy, the sales aspect of the strategy, the operations aspect of the strategy, the R&D, depending on the industry you find yourself. The banks will be developing risk management strategy, will be developing credit management strategies, etc. By all of these things, make sure there is absolute alignment and that you do not have functions operating in silos within the organization. So I normally advise that keep the goals at the corporate level. And then when we cascade it down to the functional level, every function will then develop objectives out of those goals that the organization is pursuing. The next thing you do is to build an effective leadership team. Without an effective leadership team, your strategy is as good as dead. So you develop a powerful leadership team from the chief executive officer to all the functional heads, who is driving finance, who is driving HR, who is driving marketing, who is driving operations, who is driving manufacturing or production, etc. Now, depending on the stage of the strategy, we determine which sort of talents must dominate management at the top. Then the next thing to do is to create an implementation plan. And that is where I'm going to spend a bit of my time. Now, creating an implementation plan requires that we even come out with what we call the RASI chart, where we are looking at who is in charge of what. So that's where all the objectives, and for that matter, every action you are going to take to deliver on those objectives are created. Then we look at what the battles to be won. What are the things, if we don't do, this objective will not be fulfilled. Then we look at allocation of resources, call it a budget. What do we put in this to be able to achieve this objective? And of course, we need to come out with start date and finish date for every activity line the organization wants to undertake. It is within that implementation plan that you have what we call the reporting line. So all those weekly meetings we undertake, the monthly reporting systems, the quarterly reporting system, the base, the yardstick, the measuring tool for doing all of those things is to be reporting on milestone achievement of the strategy. And all of those things must be put in the implementation plan. I wish time allowed me to project a full-fledged implementation plan and how to monitor the execution of those plans. The next thing we do is to allocate resources. Now, anytime you hear resources, 4 things must come to mind: financial resources, physical resources. Now, financial resources, physical resources tend to be what we call the hard resources in the organization. But there are also the soft resources, human resources, and technological resources. The challenge is organizations' inability to marshal a fine balance between the two, between the financial and between the hard and the soft resources. Because many a time we lay too much emphasis on the physical resources to the neglect of the financial, of the soft resources. Now, if you are just joining us, I mentioned initially that I'm doing this presentation with the assumption that you already understand strategy formulation, the strategy planning process. Because if you don't appreciate that when I'm discussing implementation or execution, a lot of things would not, make sense to you. So during the strategy formulation, for instance, one of the things we look at is, after we would have understood the organization's environment, who we are, our purpose statement, that's our mission, what we aspire to become, which becomes our vision. Then we look at our SWOT analysis, talking about our internal strengths and weaknesses as an organization. The internal also would include all the functional areas in the organization. But then there are also external forces, which are largely opportunities and threats as a company. And normally, to determine where we direct more of the resources of the organization, we conduct what we call the EFE, that is the external factor evaluation, to know whether the organization must take strategic initiative to address its threats or make more investment in its opportunities. Then we look at the larger environment, talking about the economy and economic environment, the inflation of the country, the inflation rate of the country. We look at the consumer price index, we look at the GDP, because organizations are products of the larger macroeconomic indicators of whichever country those organizations find themselves. We look at the disposable income. We look at the FX, the exchange rate. In 2022, I have to guide an organization to do a complete overhaul to their strategy because as a multinational operating in Ghana, the exchange rate more or less like thwarted the strategic course we were charting for the organization. So we have to gather for 3 days. And our purpose was a sole or a singular one. Make sure that you realign the strategy because of how the CD exchange rate, the dollar exchange rate that we couldn't quite envisage was going to be that much. That is why we always say that strategies are not, static plans. They are fluid, they are emergent, they must be reformulated and adjusted frequently so that it can respond to its external environment. The next thing we do is to assign objectives and responsibilities. Like we always say, any work that everybody thinks somebody will do, at the end of the day, nobody does it. So you must always put a name to responsibilities. In environments where some organizations do not develop strategic plan, they are just acting for the sake of them, and probably might be succeeding out of fluke, because when the dynamics change, then you go off because you are not even aware of what is responsible for your success. In those kind of environment, employees are only given job descriptions, but do not really have a deeper understanding of the strategic linkage between their individual assignment in the organization and how it affects the execution of the strategy. Then the next thing we do is to align our structure and processes. If you have ever had a very good training on strategy formulation, you would appreciate the fact that the organization have to be constantly doing what we call situation analysis. Those situation analysis helps you to refocus or readjust your strategy to address what you would have learned out of the situation you would have analyzed, and etc. Then the next thing you do is to adjust your internal structures, systems, and processes, and sometimes even the culture of the organization to be able to respond to those things. Like Jack Welch would always say, Jack Welch was the former CEO of General Electric. He said, when the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside, the end to that organization is in sight. So aligning structures and systems. Typically, I have led strategy formulations for organizations, and by the time we are through, we would have to merge some departments, demerge some of them, transfer some people. Unfortunately, we have to fire some people, and we have to re-employ some new managers, etc. Because the direction of the strategy will always determine what sort of structure, systems, and processes and culture the organization would have to create. Then the next thing we do is to align people. Now, when I talk about people this time around, I am not confining it to management staff, but the rank and file, the generality of staff. No organization can outgrow or will ever outgrow the collective knowledge and experiences of the people who run that organization. Therefore, your ability to align people carefully to the strategy, it becomes a major reason why that strategy will see the light of day. Then the last thing we do is to effectively and continuously communicate the strategy to our employees on a monthly basis, on weekly basis, and depending on your environment, you adopt your communication strategies. I mean, if you work for a company like MTN, where every 20, 30 minutes, you're expected to know what is happening in your email. You have to acknowledge every email you receive within 20, 30 minutes of every day. It's become part of their culture. But when you go to some other organizations where the masses of your staff are traditional labor, in 1 month, they have not even read what is on the notice board. They have not even, checked their emails. Then you would want to make sure that you conduct a lot of town hall meetings just to be sure that people understand the direction the organization want to go. This is more like a summarized form or explanation I've given you on what is on your screen. On a good day, we'll spend hours, 5-6 hours, just trying to help you to follow this process carefully so you can lead a proper execution. Now let's look at sometimes why we make adjustments to the strategy. Yes, we have developed a 5-year strategy. Do we just put it on autopilot, go to bed, and wake up the 5th year and realize that the strategy have seen the light of day? No. Strategy must be adjusted frequently. And the determinants to adjusting your strategies very frequently are: 1, market and competitor analysis. Those who joined my July session just about some 2-3 weeks ago, I did mention what happened to the likes of Nokia, what happened to the likes of the Blackberries, etc., because they were not doing market and competitor analysis. Nokia in particular suffered from what I normally call tunnel vision. They slotted their eyes into the tunnel. They were not interested in what the competitor was doing. One of the telcos is currently pursuing a license to run a virtual bank in Ghana. What it means is that they'll run a bank where there's no brick and mortar. You can do deposits, withdrawal, take loans, pay back your loan just by sitting in your office. And I'm not talking about the small monies we borrow from mobile money platforms. I'm talking about do complete banking business just by remaining online. All right. Now, I wish you were in the banking industry to appreciate how many of the banks are preparing and trying to adjust themselves to this, because a major competitor is coming into the market to run that virtual bank. So you constantly must be having an eye on. And I normally say that once you conduct a market analysis, you are looking at the customer preferences as against the what a competitor is offering. The discrepancy, that gap between the two, becomes the basis for your own differentiation or competitive strategy as you'll be developing. Normally, when we are developing or doing a formulation for financial year, we take decisions around 4 major areas. We normally will set goals around 4 major areas. One is product innovation. The second one is customer focus and market growth. The third one is operational efficiency and excellence. And then the fourth area is financial maximization. Most of the time, the goals of the organization will have to speak to these 4 areas. Then from that, we deduce. But whilst you are taking decisions and setting goals in these 4 areas, you must be guided with what the market and competitor analysis is saying, the industry analysis you would have done. Then also we have stakeholder feedback. Depending on your industry, we determine who your stakeholders are. Maybe the government regulator, your customers, your employees, your even the media, the community, all of those, and the shareholders, the owners of the organization, they can also determine whether we do adjustment. I shared in the last month's seminar how we developed a strategy plan for an estate company in Ghana, and the entire plan was based on affordable housing. So all of our research, all of our competitor analysis, the organizations we selected to do our benchmarking were all reliant on the fact that we are going into affordable housing. So much so that we even have to profile, Ghanaians and their income levels and when they get paid, and whether they can get facilities, as in mortgage facilities from the bank. All of them were based on the middle to the lower class people, because we're focusing on affordable housing. In the middle of the execution of the strategy, the owner of the company says he was no longer interested in affordable housing, but the strategy should be readjusted to speak to luxury homes. That's a major stakeholder feedback. So we have to come in again as consultants to be sure that we reformulate the strategy so we can compete fairly in the market. Availability of resources is also one of the major determinants to adjusting the strategy. Then, of course, crisis management, the likes of the COVID era, the likes of maybe earthquakes and floods and economic crisis, when there was that global economic crunch in 2009. Some of us were pretty young, but at least we learned a lot about it. And the economic hardship we probably saw in Ghana around 2015, 2016, and maybe 2022, 2023. Those are economic crises that determine that organizations do adjustments to their strategy, especially if they couldn't envisage those major economic changes before the crisis come. Then, of course, a milder and an internal way to also adjust your strategy would be doing constant performance reviews. Now, it is not all the time that the discrepancy between the actual and the budgeted for in the strategy is a deficit. There are times where the difference becomes a surplus, but more often than not, it's a deficit. So when we do a review, we look at measurement, and then we look at what have been responsible for, the deficits or discrepancy between what have been budgeted and what actually have been achieved. One way to monitor the performance of strategy is what we call the reporting system, where you are going to be reporting progress. So the weekly meetings and the report, you can't be conducting weekly meetings without having your strategy document as the Bible, as the organization's Bible beside you. But too many times I have observed, we have been through more than 200 organizations, and we have seen things done right in some companies, things done so wrongly in many organizations. There are weekly meetings and reporting systems that are not based on the dictates. So it's more like managers are now acting at their whims. A lot of decisions have become very arbitrary because there is really no strategy. What I've observed is how many companies go to put together long-term goals and call them strategic plans. There are monthly reporting systems, the quarterly, the media. In this July and August, we are very busy leading many organizations to do media review. What we said we're going to do in 2025 financial year, we have done half of the year. How far have we come? What do we need to adjust? What do we need to change? What do we need to reintroduce, etc.? Those media reviews that eventually lead us to end of year reviews, based on which we reformulate a higher or a new direction for the organization. Reporting system is one of the major tools we use in controlling strategy. Before I wrap up, let me just quickly speak to issues of cultural alignment. I'm sure many of us have heard this statement before. It was originally attributed to Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker says that culture will eat strategy for breakfast. Now, what he sought to say is that no matter how solid a company's strategy is, its culture will ultimately determine its success or failure. And rightly so, I have seen it in quite a number of organizations where the organization's value systems, as what we choose to call core values around here, are just there for prestige purposes. We normally have core values. And the words we've been playing with: integrity, excellence, service, all manner of, we just put some nice fancy words together, but get into the organization and find out how these values become major supporting tools, or they are tools to drive the proper execution of the strategy. And you don't clearly find any alignment. The managers who are even shouting the values sometimes do not even appreciate how these values become the foundation for the conduct of people who are executing on the strategy. Call it culture, because culture is the way we do things that help us to deliver on product promises to the customer, and by extension, deliver on organizational objectives and the vision of the company. Now, there are various cultural artifacts that determine whether an organization's strategy can be executed properly or not. Now, generally, I normally say that culture is even the social conduct of a group of people who work in an organization. And if you are bringing people from a certain community, in our case, let's say the Ghanaian community, there are various norms and values and belief systems that the average Ghanaian has generally. Now, how does this infiltrate your organization? And if nothing deliberate is done, how does it impact on the execution of the strategy? Because I normally say that culture actually does have impact on productivity. So I've asked several organizations what their productive culture is, and whether or not the culture they are presently practicing have what it takes to deliver on the execution of the strategy that organization have adopted. All right. So the idea of culture alignment is very key. And for me, that is why We can finish, developing your strategy for you and possibly lead maybe lead the formulation every year and even guide the organization its execution. One of the major things we do is to ensure that there is absolute cultural alignment between or on within the rank and file, which normally will be done from the management point of view, all right, for us to be able to drive the organization. So you may have to do a cultural audit, find out whether the culture the organization have currently actually have what it takes to help deliver on the productivity of the organization or not. I'm going to take your questions and, as much as possible, provide some answers to your questions. But what I'm saying in essence is that strategy implementation normally serves as a bridge between planning and results. It ensures that the organization's aspirations are translated into tangible actions. And of course, it plays a major pivotal role in the overall success and sustainability of the business. Out of the about 240 organizations we have engaged, whether in the areas of leadership or strategy, what I've realized is that many companies do not even have a dedicated manager in charge of strategy, not to even talk about having a full-fledged strategy department. Less than 20% of companies in Ghana have strategy departments. Now, if you do not have a strategy department, which makes it more centralized, or they become the central pivot around which we all revolve to deliver on strategy, what it means is that the responsibility on execution of strategy is decentralized or distributed among all functional heads. So you can imagine when managers in the organization themselves do not appreciate or understand the strategy environment. And rightly so is the case. I mean, as we all know, management is at 3 layers. The first line managers are the guys who manage people and activities. More than 70% of these guys, when you go to banks, for instance, branch managers are very junior managers. More than 70% of them do not understand strategy. Then when you get to senior managers who manage managers, you have over 40% of them not quite understanding what strategy is. The shocker is executive managers, those C-suite guys, the chief executive officer, the chief operations officer, the chief marketing officer, the chief finance officer, the chief HR officer, the general manager of the organization, various executive directors. Some 22% of these guys may have risen even to executive level leadership in organization, but some of them still lacks. I mean, the research was conducted by the McKinsey Consulting Group. Managers should avoid thinking that strategy implementation is a simple process. It's not. Your strategy can remain on paper and gather a lot of dust if you don't take deliberate steps to understand the implementation of strategy. Managers should avoid being caught unawares by unanticipated market changes, because strategy formulation is about relating an organization to its environment. So when the environment is changing by the market forces, the industrial forces, if you're unable to anticipate, or if at all they come, you cannot quickly respond to them, chances are that your implementation will fall on rocks. Managers must avoid failing to align organizational design and capabilities with the strategy, must avoid failing to communicate the strategy consistently and persistently, and of course must avoid making the strategy implementation and reporting process overly bureaucratic. One of the reasons many companies are unable to execute strategy is that the strategy remains too complex a document. Most recently, one of the companies engaged me not to develop their strategy. The strategy had been done by one of the major consulting firms in this country. I look at the strategy document, and as an expert in strategy, I could understand that the guys have done a good job. But the document is very complex, especially when they didn't train the managers or demystify the strategy for them to appreciate what is in the document. My concluding statement, at least for this 40-minute or so engagement, is that a vision and strategy aren't enough. The long-term key to success is execution. Each day, every day. I'll say that again. A vision and strategy. We have engaged a consultant who have led us to develop a strategy. That vision and strategy are good enough. They are good, but they aren't enough. The long-term key to success is execution. How often? Every day. When? Each day. And that was said by Richard Coverbridge. So we're going to take your questions in a bit. Don't sign off yet. There are quality questions for us to respond to that would further, open your mind to this whole idea of strategy execution. As I mentioned, we are Institute of Leadership and Strategy. We are located at East Legon, Accra, Ghana, especially for those of you who are joining the call from outside. Beyond our in-person executive courses on strategy and leadership, we also have virtual options. Indeed, those in Ghana even have the option of going between these things. So our next impending one is a certified strategy professional, 10 weeks, which is taking off on this weekend, 16th and 17th of August. You may still want to consider registering. You go through 10 modules for 10 weeks. Module number 1 is on organizational strategy and leadership. Module 2 is on strategic planning. Module 3 is on strategy formulation. People don't quite understand the difference between strategic planning and strategy formulation. We try to demystify it for you. Module 4 is on competitive and growth strategies, delivered by a very experienced strategy executive for one of the major banks in Ghana. Leading and managing strategy, leading and managing change. Now, change management is actually a leadership and strategy agenda. Then also you go through managing strategic projects. When you are executing on strategy, there are initiatives and projects that you'll be managing. Then module 7 is on business and financial analysis. At the end of the day, it is about result and the bottom line. So how do we understand this financial statement from the balance sheet to the income statement, which is popularly known as the profit and loss account, the cash flow statement, the budgeting system of organization. Then you go through strategy execution and control as your module number 8. Module number 9 is a very peculiar module where you would actually be developing your own strategic plans. You do it in teams. All those from the banking or the financial sector will be in one group. Those from the telcos, those from the pharmaceuticals, those from the public sector, those from the services sector, name it. You will develop your own strategy plans, and on our 9th meeting, you meet a panel of strategy experts and make your presentations. Then their review and commentary becomes the learning platform to seal off your confidence in how to develop strategy plans. And then finally, strategy assessment. To qualify for this program, you must either be in a management position, and we don't care which level, whether layer 1, line manager, junior, senior, middle, executive manager, you have to be in a management role. Otherwise, you must be a professional. We've seen several lawyers and military officers, even a couple of medical doctors have come through. What we don't take is, I just finished university last year, I finished my national service, can I come to your strategy program? You will not even appreciate the content that will be delivered. And so, wait, go and gain a little bit of experience. When you start rising into management role, you can call us and come. You earn an internal executive certificate in strategy. But should you decide to sit for the international certification in strategy, you earn the CSP. And this 10-week training is enough to help you earn the distant week. This weekend, which is August 16 and 17, is our cohort number 7. All right. So that's how our classes look like. This is the immediate session that we just passed out. Lastly, our faculty, very experienced persons, deliver our strategy lectures, from Mr. Kwekwa Awotri, who is a visiting resource person, former CEO of Talo Oil, current board chairman of United Bank for Africa. He led the strategy department for Anglo Gold Ashanti for several years. Wing Commander Samuel Alote, former executive of Stanbic Bank, who is chairing the Jospon Group board. Then the chief finance officer of the bank hospital, Grace Awotri, my good self, as a leadership and strategy expert. Mr. Adolf Kwega is the current chief strategy officer for Absa Bank Ghana. Dr. Samuel Segna is a leadership and strategy expert, management consultant, and a senior lecturer with the Ghana Technology University. Ebo Richardson is a management consultant. He led the change of Barclays Bank into Absa as an executive manager with Absa Bank at the time. And then Mr. Michael Abiu, he sits on the board of Telecel Ghana, strategy expert, and also the chief executive officer of MGA Consulting Ghana. Right, so let me just take some questions coming from the moderator. I guess within 10 minutes, we can take the questions and then we call it a session. Over to you, Irajua.
All right, and ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Jeff Bassi, a strategist and a leadership expert. Thank you so much, Doc. As he made in his opening statement, he quoted Maurice Chan. He says that without a strategy, execution is aimless. Without execution, strategy is useless. And so I'm sure that most of us on this call have taken some few nuggets to use in our various organizations to thrive as well. And so we'll zoom right into our Q&A session. So the floor is opened. If you have any questions at all, you can drop them in the comment section, and then we engage the facilitator with your questions. And so we'll do that briefly, and then we can wrap up for today. Right, so I can see a few questions in the comment section, and so I'll start taking them. If you also have, you can drop them in the comment section. All right, so we'll take the first question, which says, Paul Aiku. We'll take a first question from Paul Aiku. He says, usually TITS is the informal culture which does not receive a lot of attention that eats up strategy for breakfast. Organizational iceberg is an area to look at. Okay, so he's passing a comment, and so thank you, Paul, for that comment as well. We'll take Prince. Prince says that, can an implementation plan be created before an effective leadership team is built? Prince wants to know if an implementation plan can be created before an effective leadership team is built. Over to you, Doc, please.
Well, how do you create a plan if there are no leaders in place? Because it takes leadership itself to create a good implementation plan. So maybe yes, if you already are sure of your system, but issues of strategy are not cast in stone, all right? And so it's not rocket science, but any day, anytime, I would say, make sure there's a leadership plan, and that same leadership plan are the ones that would, help to develop a good implementation plan. Because that time where there are external shocks to the strategy and you have to go back and do adjustments to the entire strategy, including the implementation plan, you need to go back to that strategy environment. The leaders who were involved in developing that matter, those who are leading the execution, you need to go back to the strategy environment and make sure that they are all on the same wavelengths. Though at the time we're formulating this strategy, we thought that we're going to go this way. It has become necessary due to the exogenous forces or the external changes that we go this other way altogether. Don't ever make a change to strategy, even if you are the chief executive officer, without going back to the same people who were involved in formulating the strategy. That becomes a major recipe for the failure of the strategy, because there are a lot of egos at play. And for us, when we are delivering our 10-week strategy course, we dedicate a little time to dealing with even office politics that can impact on the execution of the strategy.
All right. Thank you for that, Doc. We'll take the next question. Michael, he says that, how often should a strategy be reviewed? Say, he's given an example, say a strategy for 2024 to 2026. How often should that strategy be reviewed?
Right. So when you have a strategy, let's say 2024, 2025, 2026, that's a 3-year strategy. Every year you will go back and do a formulation. So you can see formulation as encapsulated in strategic planning. Strategic planning is the long-term direction we develop an organization. But every year we go back to reformulate the strategy. So a 3-year strategy will be reformulated 3 times. That alone is a form of review. But every so you are doing formulation 3 times, and you're also doing mid-year 3 times. That alone is 6 years, or 6 times, forgive me. That minimum. 6 times is the minimum. Now, depending on the nature of your operations, you can introduce quarterly elements into it. Then we are even talking about some 10 times of reviews already. Okay, so the minimum for a 3-year strategy review will be 6 times, because every year you reformulate depending on the external forces, which is 3 plus the 3 times of mid-year review, 6 times minimum. But depending on your nature of the nature of the strategy, your environment, your industry, it could be more. But minimal 6 times you must review a 3-year strategy.
All right. Let's take the third question. Quite an interesting question here from Paul. Paul says that what is the place of change management in strategy execution? What is the place of change management in strategy execution?
All right. I'm sure Paul, just as everybody else, have heard the word VUCA. VUCA is the acronym for how volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous our business world has become. In the absence of managing change, your strategy is as good as dead. Because trust me, by the time you would have developed a strategy and even run it for 1 year, let's say a 5-year strategy plan, even run it for 1 year, the changes that will come. So I have been confronted occasionally with questions as whether VUCA has even rendered the whole idea of strategy plans useless. I said no. VUCA is the more reason why strategy plans must be done and done well. But because of the constant changes we see, when you develop a strategy, you must also have skills in change management. That is how come when I was taking our listeners through the 10 modular course we ran on strategy, I did on strategy, how do you call it? Certified strategy professional. I mentioned that a whole module is dedicated to change management. And it's not just any abstract change. We teach you how to manage changes within the strategy execution itself. So it's a very relevant and important discipline. Without it, it's like you have started an engine and put the car on the road and say you are not going to be steering the vehicle. You just leave the car on a straight path from here to Kumasi. You won't even get to Pokwasi when you find yourself in the bush. You have to be navigating a lot of dynamics on the way in order to carefully arrive in Kumasi safely.
All right. Paul, we hope that this addresses your question. We'll take a last but one question. So we are taking 2 more questions and then we close for today. So we'll take the last but one question from Ikia Boche. She's saying that what is the board's role in strategy formulation and implementation beyond approving it? What is the board's role in strategy formulation and implementation beyond approving it? All right.
Very good question. Now, let me say here and now, the owner of the strategic plan is the board, not management. The board is the one that owns the strategic plan. So when we have to do a strategic plan for you, we interview all senior managers. We normally will start from the CEO. Now, embedded in the CEO's interview is to share with us board directives. In fact, in some cases, we even insist that we meet the board chairman to know the vision and the direction, because the board is the custodian, the owner of the strategy. But when it comes to implementation, that is management issue, all right? So management is the one that implements. So as we speak now, we just ended strategic plan for one of the banks. It was sanctioned by the board. We have done it. We will be meeting the management team together with a cross-section of the board this Friday. Because the board have to, so normally when we are presenting, that first presentation, we call it the draft copy or the draft report. And the comments that comes from the board members then helps us to fine-tune or flesh it up finally. And then we now present to the company the final report. So the board is actually the owner. They are not even playing, it's not even as if they are playing a role. They sanction the strategy and they are the ones that approve it. Anything in between is management. And if management is not doing it well, the board can call the shot by firing the CEO and his direct lieutenants because they are not delivering on the strategy. So the board initiates and end the strategy. But initiating means they sanction it. At the end of it, they have to approve it and even tell you whether they are satisfied on your delivery on the strategy plan or not. Right.
All right. Okay. So the final question, and then we close for today, from Nana Menta. He says, can a strategy be executed if there's less resources, or can the available resources be managed for a strategy to be executed?
Well, Nana, when we are developing the strategy plan, is one of the things we put into consideration is the resources. Remember, we would have been conducting a SWOT analysis. When we are looking at your internal strengths, it includes whether you have the physical, as in the financial and physical resources to be able to execute on the strategy. Sometimes we even develop the strategy based on projected revenues and recapitalization or injecting new capital, or we look at the equity strength of the company, the balance sheet that is backing up the organization, etc. But as much as you bank your hope on these things coming at a time, sometimes they do not come. So if you realize, when I was walking you through the determinants of adjusting the strategy, the external shocks that require adjusting the strategy, one of them I mentioned is limited resources. We thought we will have this. If you don't have the resources, it becomes very difficult to execute on the strategy. As I mentioned, depending on your resources. Now, no organization in the world, not one, can boast of abundant resources. Every organization does have what we call limited resources. That is why when we are looking at the strategy, diamond, we look at one, where have we decided to play arenas? Then we look at which vehicles we get us there. Then we look at what are going to be our differentiators. Then we look at with which intensity we are going to pursue this, which is what we call staging. And then all of this we are taking doesn't make economic sense. So the courage to choose is the heart of strategy. Depending on the resources at our disposal, what can we do? What choices can we do? I delivered this presentation on the assumption that my listeners understand strategy and the environment of strategy. If you do not understand strategy, then it will be difficult for you to appreciate what I just did here. But if you did, then you would know that when we are doing the formulation, one of the decisions we make when we are looking at the strategic alternatives analysis and the evaluation of what choices we make, one of the major determinants is the resources are available to the organization.
All right. Indeed, the courage to choose is the heart of strategy. Thank you so much, Dr. Jeff Bassi. We are immensely grateful for taking your time to take us through strategy execution. And ladies and gentlemen, I always say that the 1 hour is not enough to do justice to the topic for the day. And so if you want to know more on strategy, you have to look no further than to enroll in the Certified Strategy Professional course with the Institute of Leadership and Strategy. We take our time for 10 weeks to take you through all the nuggets you need to know in strategy. And so our next cohort for the Certified Strategy Professional is starting on the 16th of August, just this weekend on the Saturday for the in-person class. And then on the 17th of August, which is this Sunday, for the virtual class. And so you want to contact us on our hotline if you want further details concerning our Certified Strategy Professional. Strategy execution is one of the modules we tackle in Certified Strategy Professional course. And so you want to contact our hotline for further details. And you can reach us on 0244 268672. 0244 268672. For any inquiries, you can call or WhatsApp us on that number, and we'll be glad to address all your issues as well. So registration is ongoing, so do well to reach us on that number. You can also follow us on social media, like we mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, that we do this once every month. And so to be able to get updates on the next and the upcoming webinar, you need to be following us on social media to get to know. And so follow us on all our social media platforms. We are very active on social media, on LinkedIn, on Facebook and Instagram. And the social media handle is ILS Executive. You can just search for us and then follow us to get updates on all our upcoming programs as well. We are located at East Legon, just behind GT Bank. Another closest landmark is the Mensvik Hotel, and so you can locate us at East Legon. I've already mentioned our contact at 0244-268672. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the ILS webinar series. This has been the August edition. Thank you all so much for joining. We'll come your way same time again next month, September, to bring you the September edition. And as always, we are passionate about developing managers and corporate executives. And so thank you all so much for joining, and it's bye for now.
To lead at the highest levels, strategy must be your language. The Institute of Leadership and Strategy is Ghana's premier training destination for professionals preparing for C-suite and senior executive roles. The Certified Strategy Professional Program is a 10-week executive course designed to deepen your strategic expertise across key modules with flexible weekend sessions online and in person. You can locate us at East Legon, Accra, or call 0244-268672. That's 0244-268672 today to register. Institute of Leadership and Strategy, developing managers and corporate executives. To lead at the highest levels, strategy must be your language. The Institute of Leadership and Strategy is Ghana's premier training destination for professionals preparing for C-suite and senior executive roles. The Certified Strategy Professional Program is a 10-week executive course designed to deepen your strategic expertise across key modules with flexible weekend sessions online and in person. You can locate us at East Legon, Accra, or call 0244-268672. That's 0244-268672 today to register. Institute of Leadership and Strategy, developing managers and corporate executives. To lead at the highest levels, strategy must be your language. The Institute of Leadership and Strategy is Ghana's premier training destination for professionals preparing for C-suite and senior executive roles. The Certified Strategy Professional Program is a 10-week executive course designed to deepen your strategic expertise across key modules with flexible weekend sessions online and in person. You can locate us at East Legon, Accra, or call 0244-268672. That's 0244-268672 today to register. Institute of Leadership and Strategy, developing managers and corporate executives.